For week 17, we're going to be continuing with Impressionism. And in the book, The Great Artist Lessons, it has students adding unusual things to the paint. Things like sand or flour or pine needles. And I think what they're trying to get at is the idea of impasto, which is where there's a very, very thick paint on the canvas showing a lot of texture. And this is exactly what the Impressionists did. However, I don't think adding sand and pine needles really teaches the children an accurate idea of this technique. So I'm going to be showing you another way to get this lesson across in a more accurate way, still using basic items that you can find locally, but hopefully it will have the students better understand the idea of impasto and how the Impressionists would have actually used this technique. So I have tried lots of things in my kitchen trying to get a thick tempera paint, just like the consistency that the Impressionists would have used with their oil paint. So I've tried flour, I've tried cornstarch, I've tried plaster of Paris. None of them worked. So the best thing that I've come up with is to go to your local home improvement store and buy this joint compound. So this is a bucket that's 3.5 quarts. And it was only like $5.50. And this is more than enough substance to use for your entire campus. So for about $5, you can easily get this to supply all the students in your campus. So what you're going to be doing is taking that joint compound and you're going to be putting it into some sort of disposable container. So I just have a little plastic yogurt cup, and I've used a plastic spoon to add some joint compound into that. And then you can take your tempera paint and add it in there. Since the joint compound is white, it might lighten the paint a little bit, so you can just add more. But you're still going to get a nice thick paint. Even if you add a lot of the tempera to it, it will not dilute it too much. So you're going to be stirring up your paint and your joint compound into containers using the plastic spoon, and then you'll use the plastic spoon to add paint onto the students' paper plates. And I think using this joint compound is the best because it dries in about an hour after we paint it. So in that way, the students can work on art in the morning and be able to take their dry paper home by the end of the day. Again, it's cheap and it actually holds its texture. Whereas when I tried to do flour or cornstarch, as it dried, the texture would flatten and we wouldn't get that impasto technique that we're going for. So after you have the things mixed up, you can add all the colors to the students' plates. Right now I just have the primary colors and then some of just the white joint compound to lighten it. You can make as many colors as you want to add to the students' palettes, or you can just use the primaries and the students can mix the colors to make their own colors on their palette. I'm also going to be using a Q-tip to paint with. I don't want to get the joint compound dried in the brushes and have to throw them away. So the Q-tip is a really easy way to use this really odd paint and not have it ruin your supplies, and these can be thrown away when you're done. Once you have the paint on the students' palettes, then they can begin painting on their picture. So we have examples in the lesson plan of images by Morisot, and I've printed them out onto cardstock so that they're nice and stiff and can hold up to the amount of paint that we're going to be adding to it. Now you can take your paint, you can see how thick it is. It kind of is like Play-Doh almost. And use your Q-tip to add that really, really thick paint to your picture. We want it to stick up a lot. Even when you see a picture of an Impressionist work printed like in a book or on a postcard, they use so much paint that even though the image is flat, you can still see how textured it was. So really encourage the kids to add a lot of this to their paper, so it's actually sticking up quite a bit. And it's really fun. You can try different techniques of dabbing, and that gets a different texture, or moving it around in circles, that gets a different texture. Some areas can be flat if you wanted to, if you move it around really smooth, or you continue to add more and thicken it up. The idea is to purposefully see this texture throughout the painting. You can also add other colors to it, and these blend and mix just like any paint would. So I'm adding some yellow, and we can see that it mixes right into the red, as if you were using paint right out of the tube. So I can add and layer different colors right there on my paper. I think I'll do a different color inside the middle. Maybe I'll do some yellow. I can dab that in. And though we can't get really fine details because the Q-tip, you know, is not very, very pointed, we can still get into small spaces with it, just like that, and it should be fine. So if you can see this, hopefully, we can see how much this paint is sticking up off the paper, and it will actually dry and keep its same thickness, which is exactly what we want. So you can give the students several Q-tips so that they don't have to muddy up their color. So I'm going to be using blue now for a different part of my painting, and just going in and filling in this picture with that. And if I wanted to lighten up my blue, I could take my joint compound that has nothing added to it, and this just serves as a white. So I could make a light blue by adding that to my paint as well, and make all sorts of different colors. And this is really fun because you can see as I swirl around, the texture changes as I go. So not only do we have color, but we have different designs going on in the texture of the paint as well. So after the students continue painting their whole piece, then you guys can let it dry. And like I said, drying to the touch takes about an hour. So doing the art during the beginning of the day is ideal, so that students can put it in their backpack and not have it smear around on everything. And it should be completely dry in just a few hours. It is kind of thick, so it takes a little while for those under layers to completely dry.